So Jessica and Heather and I all worked together at Dow. I guess when we all started, it was still Dow. And worked there for several years together and just kind of were rock stars, I think. And in the building and construction industry, it was fun. We worked with so many good people there. And I'll say a lot of really good, very intelligent, smart, capable women as well. And so that was really cool. So that was a lot of fun. And I learned a ton while I was there. And then, of course, that business merged with DuPont. And that was, I thought it was a good and interesting learning experience. And it ended up being a really positive experience as well. I felt like we really learned how to bring two businesses together and learn how to do no harm to start with, and then figure out how you can grow and win together. And it was really a fun kind of activity. So that was good. Yeah. Then I moved on to worked for the American Chemistry Council for a few years. Wanted to really, I guess, go further in my career into the advocacy area and really explore that and see how far I could take it. So that's an organization that's in DC. And so I got a lot of great experiences there in DC, working on policy and working on behalf of the whole building and construction industry for the chemical sector. And it was really a lot of fun, but it was a lot of work, and really it helped me grow in a lot of different areas, but it also in the end was like not where I just love being. So now I'm back into really hands-on getting into policy development side of things for the industry. I'm working as the executive director for the Energy Efficient Codes Coalition, but have my own consulting business and was hired to do that. Nest Solutions is my consulting business. And so I also work for others and do a lot of work across the board on national standards for energy efficiency in building and construction, and for sustainability, materials, resources, and things like that go into building and construction. It's the work that I enjoy doing because I was doing so much, wearing so many hats at ACC for the building and construction industry that I was just everywhere, and I wasn't able to focus on the stuff I really loved. So so this has been great. I get to really do the stuff I like.
What is the work? Because you're a consultant.
Yeah,
right?
So I'm doing more. Surprise, surprise. I'm doing a lot of energy code work still. Okay. So doing a lot of work in the sustainability standards. A lot of it's monitoring, so I don't really have a voting position in many of the committees and things and that work going on. But I'm actually the executive director for the Energy Efficient Codes Coalition. So they hired me to be their new executive director for that organization. And so I'm doing that. That's about half my time. And then I have a couple of other one other industry association that I'm doing a little bit of sustainability work for, and another manufacturer that I'm doing sustainability work for.
Like a nice blend of different types of clients too.
Yeah. So it's good. So I'm happy.
Do you travel a lot, or can you mostly?
Not as much. I mean, when I was at ACC, I was in DC all the time. That's tapered off now. I'm still like, I know I'm going to have to go to DC in January, and then I know I have to go to ASTM symposium in Toronto in April.
Good. Thanks for joining us today. Have you listened to the podcast a little bit?
I have. Yeah. I just listened to your last one yesterday. So and that was a really fun one because the urban versus rural thing. I'm a farm girl too, pretty much, Jessica. So like I get it, right? And I was like, okay, I could name what I think the rural brands are versus the city brands.
I'm surprised the city preference towards the meat, the plant-based meat. I was shocked that was on even the list at all.
Yeah, I think.
What do you know about plant-based meat? Tell us. And what are they saying about the cattle killing everything? What where are we on that?
I don't know. I am coming from the fitness nutrition place. I'm not it sounds weird. I'm not about the impossible burgers and all that. I'm just not. It's like, I understand the value of protein in diet, even especially as you get older and things like that, and are trying to maintain muscle synthesis and, maintaining muscle for your bone health and everything. And I don't know. I'm so skeptical of,
Yeah.
are you really getting nutrition? And I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Mm.
I am too.
Same.
Yeah.
Not doing
And
it.
Whole Foods, like Whole Foods, it makes sense, right? It's what
Yeah.
comes out of the earth, what, I don't know. It just
And
seems
I
like
think
what we're supposed to do.
choices, like if you're gonna get a cow, also see if you can source it locally. That we do that. We know the farmer. I could drive by and see the cow
Yeah.
before.
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
That one.
exactly. Exactly. And you hear it's better for the environment and, lower your carbon emissions by, cutting out beef, whatever, especially beef, right? Beef is one of the high ones, but I have enough experience in life cycle assessment as well to like go, maybe not, maybe they're really not that comparable,
Yeah.
as far as, because there's product category rules that go into how you do your life cycle assessment. And depending on if they're using the same product category rule for each and the comparison, does it really compare? And, are you truly looking at cradle to gate for each of them?
Right.
And I started looking at one LCA for the Impossible Burger, and in their description, you have to take into account the cradle part, right, where it's coming from, and the crop production, and they list in their attributing emissions to manure being put in the field. And I'm like, well, how are you going to get the manure if you're not raising the animals to eat the manure? I mean,
It's
because
still a byproduct.
you have to replenish the nutrients in the soil, and you have to have animal manure or a synthesized fertilizer to do that. And so again, it goes back to what are you going to do and what's really better and natural. And I don't know. I thought that was funny.
It's funny.
It's funny.
I do think it's interesting though. It may not be like all or nothing. There might be a place for it. It might be supplementary. I think it is really interesting when people say, well, I'm not vegan or vegetarian, but on Mondays I don't eat meat, and that cuts back on my environmental impact. And then I think that that's interesting, or maybe I'll make the choice sometimes. So therefore it supplements. Some people actually during the hurricane, people I saw on Facebook were posting like the aftermath of the hurricane, were posting you wanted us to get all of these electric vehicles, but it wasn't the electric vehicles coming in and saving those who were in need. It was the big diesel trucks. And I'm like, well, yeah, but not all of us are also going to drive big diesel trucks.
Right.
It was horses.
We have a Tesla and we have a diesel truck, so we have one of each. And during the hurricane, our Tesla was sitting in the garage because we weren't expecting the storm either to be what it was at all. And so we hadn't charged the car fully before the storm. And we only had like 60 miles left on the car when the storm hit. So it's like we had 10 days without power.
Wow.
We could not charge the car. And, we didn't want to take it too far. And at the time, there were lines for everything, and traffic was all backed up because of trees down and like utility lines down, etc. And so we couldn't take the car really anywhere. So I have a picture actually of the generator in our driveway with about 10 gas cans sitting around the generator and the Tesla sitting in the garage, So it was just kind of like this didn't go, as planned or as it should have, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. If you had a power wall and you could, feed back into the house and you had a full charge, all those cars lined up right, then maybe it would have been worth it. But yeah, when you're not expecting it, we just didn't have it,
What else was the experience like recovering from the hurricane?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's what, almost 2 months now. And Augusta was, you didn't hear much about Augusta. You hear a lot about Asheville, you hear a lot about Florida on the coast. Augusta got a lot of rain in like the 24 to 48 hours before the storm came through. And then we had hurricane force winds here in Augusta. And I think, well, I don't know how long it's been if they've ever recorded winds that high here. But over 100 miles an hour, and with the tall pine trees here, it took them out. We have so many trees down, and we have at least 50 large trees down on our property. We have like 4 acres, and we're hauling them to the front of the yard every weekend. We're spending about a day just with the chainsaws going out there in the woods and hauling wood out. And we're going to be doing that for a long time.
Yeah.
Did you have any damage to your home or your anything else?
A little bit of, not much. We had a tree that ended up leaning on an outbuilding that we have, but it just kind of bent the gutter. Wasn't really a major issue. We had 2 trees kind of fall like a teepee over a jet ski that we had sitting outside. So just missed that. And then we did have a fence around our backyard, the back property, because we have a pool in our backyard, and it just destroyed the fence. Like, you cannot even walk the fence line right now with the trees down. So it's just, yeah.
2 months ago.
It's been 2 months. Yeah. It's been about 2 months. So it'll be a long time before we get it all cleaned up. And we're, work with the insurance companies. They're supposedly going to pay for the trees to be removed from the fence and the replacement of the fence, but we'll see. We're still working on it.
Yeah, I remember we had like a big hail event in Midland, and everybody's roofs were completely destroyed. And it took almost a full year of people coming in from outside of the state, and assessors, but then also roofers, and it was still so long, and that was just a roof,
Yeah. And you don't know who to trust, right? Because you don't know some of the people that are coming into town, right? That's like, yeah.
Storm chasers.
Yeah.
Did you have any like water issues or anything after that?
No, not really. Actually, it was
great.
It was fine. I was actually, my husband wasn't even home during the storm, and when we weren't expecting it to be that bad. He was at a place in Savannah, and he said, "Well, I can come home if you need me to." And I was like, "It's not going to be that bad. It'll be fine. I'm fine." So I hunkered down in our laundry room. We don't have basements here. So I was in our laundry room with the flashlight, the whole deal. And it did sound like the roof was being ripped off.
Oh my God.
I was sitting there. I thought I was going to open the door and see like, sky or something. But no, I didn't, thankfully. But there are quite a few people in the area that, gosh, the tree came down and wiped out half the house. Kind of deal where you can like see the bed hanging off of a floor, as you drive by. And it's just, there's a lot of damage for folks that lost, pieces of their house. Then the water came, water continued to come, wind continued to come. And it just, they're in a much worse place.
Yeah, for sure. That's crazy.
And then you see, talk about sustainability. And then you look at all of this debris that's being dragged out, and it's like, what a waste for all this stuff, all the wood, and, you're not supposed to burn anything anymore because any combustible materials, contribute to greenhouse gas production. And yet, if we could use all of that wood for fuel right now.
Right.
It would take us down the road quite a while, to get rid of all that. So they're piling it up. First time I've had to experience like a disaster like that. I mean, Sanford, you guys had the dam situation, but first time that I've ever experienced anything like that.
Yeah, it's wild.
We were driving to Gaylord last summer, and they had a tornado. And I have never seen something so strange in my life. One building will be so gone, and the next one's just sitting there like nothing ever happened. And then one
Yeah.
part of the building is totally fine, and there's the whole back end. It's just
Oh my gosh.
really crazy how a tornado will totally destruct, partially destruct, or just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I've been through areas that have had a tornado too. And yeah, you see that pathway, right? And there's, a few miles here and there where it's come through. And this hurricane thing, wow, like everywhere you drive, like all around town, it's the same. It's like everywhere
Yeah.
that the destruction. And so that's what I told my husband too, is like, wow, it's like you can kind of deal with it on the small scale in your neighborhood. Oh yeah, we'll recover, we'll get there.
Right.
When you see the large scale devastation across the entire city and the metro area, it's like, oh my gosh, it is going to take so much time, and it's going to take so long for people to get back on their feet. So yeah, it's crazy.
And these events are expected to continue to get worse like that because of climate warming, right?
Yeah, the events have been more severe, I would say. It fluctuates as far as the number goes and things, but I think they're getting more severe. And I think also that a lot of people have moved to the populations where the weather is a little bit more severe, more to the coastline areas where you have bigger deltas in temperature and things like that. And so
and sometimes even if it's not necessarily getting more severe, where people are congregating, there's more cement, less ability to have like water drainage, all of those other variables, and flooding and cracks and all of that stuff.
So it's a problem that we're gonna, I think too, that's the other thing, is like everybody wants to talk about climate change. We've got to mitigate climate change, but if we don't adapt at the same time, we're never going to get, I don't think, we're not going to meet the goals.
Especially our generation. Like our generation won't matter anyway, right?
Right. And I just, with how the things are going in globally, even if we do everything and spend all the money to get the US on a path, to where we're reducing our emissions, China and India and other countries, if they're not keeping up in the same way, this is a global issue. So we can do our part, but if everybody's not doing their part, we're still going to have a global issue. And we need to therefore also be prepared to adapt to the changes that come because of it. And so, we need to build better, be aware.
That's a really interesting point. How do you think about like what can regular people do to try to make choices on both ends? I mean, there's something about the magnitude of it being like, well, this is a global issue. So it sounds in some ways like little old me. I don't really know how am I supposed to adapt, or also how might I make day-to-day choices that can reduce at least my independent impact, and does it even matter? Like, how do we think about that as just consumers? Do you think, or how do you think about it?
Yeah, well, people are going to some extent, live where they're going to live because, this is where their families are or whatever. So you do have to consider, though, where within that region I think you're going to plant yourself. I think it has a big impact and could have a big impact on you personally and financially. If you do build on a floodplain of any sort and you're not expecting to have a problem, you're probably going to be very unhappy down the road. So looking at where you actually plant yourself, what the conditions are, expecting that if you're in 100-year floodplain, expect a flood in 50. I just think that you have to start thinking that way as a consumer when you're making decisions. And that home is typically your biggest investment, that you're going to make in your lifetime. So I think people have to be a little bit more careful about that. And I also think, and you guys know this from building and construction sector that we come from, if you don't build well and quality up front, and there's so much cheap housing out there. I shouldn't say cheap housing. There's a difference between affordability and
poor quality.
cheap. Yeah. So the quality needs to be there. And, you can build well if, with paying attention to the details, but consumers don't know often, right, what to ask for, what to look for. And so there needs to be something done there. And I'm not sure how to get that. That's one struggle I've had for many years now. How do we get consumers asking the right questions of their builders and expecting the right things from the builders in order to have a house with a roof that has hurricane tie downs on it, so the roof's not going to blow up, when the winds come, and built appropriately and high enough and level enough and with enough drainage around the foundation and all of that in order to be able to mitigate some of the issues they could have from some of the larger storms that are coming, or from a really cold event or a really hot event, depending on the climate zone you live in. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't know. There's just different things like that. Those are the biggies, right? Because I mean, the type of car you drive too, yeah, to some extent as well. I think a lot of that depends on how far you're driving every day. What you're doing, with your vehicle. Is it just a commute? Are you, commuting with somebody? Are you putting yourself an hour and a half away from your workplace on a daily basis? A lot of people are working from home, and actually our climate and our carbon emissions dropped a lot during the pandemic because everyone was at home, right? So it was crazy that just, not going into work made such a huge difference in our emissions overall as a country. So I don't know. It's just those kinds of decisions you have to make about how far you're going to commute, where you're going to live, how you're going to live, the quality of the stuff you're going to invest in. One way or another, we're going to pay for it. So
yeah, it's true. It's true.
How do you think about, when you think about educating the consumer, how do you think about, like, I haven't been in that type of building and construction in 3 years now, but I guess my first question is, whose responsibility is it? How do you think about that, educating the consumer? And then 2, where are we at with that today across the board? And
yeah, that's a good one. I mean, as far as educating the consumer, I would love to think that it's a national policy level responsibility. There's so many things that we can't seem to get right on an individual basis. And if it's left up to companies, right, that manufacture products, I mean, we can all have our message, but it's all going to be an individual message focused on one aspect of the building. It'd be nice if builders carried the message and just did it out of the goodness of their own heart, but they're looking to make as much margin as they can as well. And quite often builders also it's a generational industry quite often. And, it's handed down from, father to son or to daughter or whoever. And you don't typically go to school or get any certification. Sometimes you have to be licensed, but that doesn't require a whole lot in most places. So it's not really a builder. And the code official, to be honest with you, I think could do a better job. The local code officials, they're employed by the jurisdiction again, and they are required in most cases to have ongoing yearly instruction and education in order to keep up their requirements. So they typically will know more, but unfortunately, they're like the police officers, for housing. Just like you have the police on the street, that would pull over somebody for speeding. They're supposed to be the ones that will say, no, you can't do this, or we're not going to give you the occupancy, or we're going to, make you redo this. But oftentimes, I hate to say this because there's really good ones out there, but there's a lot that let things slide.
Yeah. And it's a reactive role. To police officers, you could prevent the people from breaking the law. You catch them as they do.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. And then once the home has a certificate of occupancy, there's like they have no power after that. So, it's a shame because really they're doing a disservice to the public when they're not enforcing everything. And they're understaffed very often and underfunded, which is also a problem. But yeah, I honestly do think it's a bigger responsibility from a national policy perspective, just say, look, we need to do this, and we need to have some more, I hate to say it, but laws about that, because we're not getting it at the local level, and it's so disjointed with so many different pieces. And we've seen things like overseas with fire, protection requirements and things like that go so awry. Thankfully, we've got a few more stringent requirements in the US, so things have been a little bit better. But we haven't had anything major, but they've had some major disasters overseas with fire safety. And so lessons learned there too is that it's very disjointed, and everybody's pointing fingers at somebody else's responsibility. And we have to continue to work to make sure that this is done on at a better level, or a national level, at least some more checks and balances in there, so everybody's getting what they expect. Yeah.
The building and construction industry is one of the largest emitters of carbon, right? And I think I'm pretty positive the textile and fashion industry is up there. I think also with maybe other implications, because the life of the product is a lot shorter than in building as well. So I think there's other implications even related to that. Curious any parallels we could learn from the building and construction industry that might be interesting to apply in textile and fashion from, just your awareness.
Well, I do think that durability is a key, right? I mean,
we started to talk about that a lot.
Yeah, I think we're so fickle, right? And when it comes to fashion, because it's like you want the latest and greatest. But again, like the more you buy, or more, turnover you have in your wardrobe, the higher your, environmental impact is going to be. So, so you want to, I think durability is a big deal. I know there are fabrics and things that have recycled content, and so that might be interesting to explore that more. I think that a lot of them do have some decent durability qualities. Even shoes, and a lot of the fitness apparel has a lot of recycled content in it. Other things, it's I think more difficult. And I think you can sacrifice some durability for sustainability when it comes to certain materials. I don't know. It's just always a balance, right? I think this is another thing with, I guess, comparison with the building and construction industry. You can, even at interior finishes, you can go with a really green, upholstery, even fabric in a hospital. And it's really green, and it's going to contribute to your LEED. I know you guys talked about LEED a little bit. LEED certification, because it comes from some, really renewable source. But when it can't withstand the rigor of the cleaning requirements in a hospital, and it breaks down in 5 years, and you have to replace it every 5 years, is that really more sustainable?
That might have lasted 20 years.
A vinyl.
Yeah.
Right?
But lasts a lot longer.
Yeah, right. So I don't know. I think we have to be careful not to sacrifice or make what they call the regrettable substitutions, right? Things that are supposedly greener, but don't have either function as well, or in the case of the Impossible Burger, taste as good, or have some of the, or have sodium or whatever. I don't know. Yeah. So
I said we could buy Impossible Burgers and eat them.
Right. Oh,
I was watching an old video of my family, or my husband and our friends, eating horse in Iceland, and I was not participating.
I wouldn't either. I don't blame you.
A horse or a cow? I mean,
Not adventurous. No way.
Oh, sorry, didn't mean to go there.
When we are thinking about, and Jess has a bunch of things she wants to talk about, but we are thinking about building a home or upgrading homes, what would be the 3 things you'd tell people, like, pay attention to or spend the extra money on, or don't worry about because doesn't function or doesn't have the durability as it's being marketed to?
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that I've come across more recently and actually in Michigan where you all live, there are a few houses that are being used as part of a project with the Pacific Northwest National Lab. That's one of the Department of Energy labs, where they're adding insulation upon residing. So if you're gonna make an upgrade and you're gonna side your house, like, that's the time to put more insulation on it, right? So, and it kind of also coincides with, okay, if you're going to do that, then also upgrade your windows. Now that it starts adding up, right? It adds cost, but again, it's never going to be cheaper than at that moment to do it.
Right.
And there's so many, I think people also don't realize there's so many rebates and things out there right now to encourage that and help with that it's worth kind of looking into, at least in that, decision if it's the right time, because it can save you money on your monthly bill. In addition to what you can save in the rebates, you can have reduced monthly utility bills that start paying you back for that investment right from the front end. So it's, different things to think about there as far as investment in that future, I guess, and especially efficiency stuff that pays you back.
Yeah. Curious, last couple questions for you here. Holidays are coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Are you doing anything? Are you thinking about your holiday shopping as it relates to sustainability or gifting responsibly? Does that matter to you?
No, because you're also a grandma and you might, I know about how that works.
I don't know. Well, honestly, probably not. No, I would say no. I mean, it usually doesn't. If I find something cool that I'm like all for it, but I mean, I don't know. I think we're trying to do less though, and less stuff and more experience too.
Yes,
so
free gifting, for what you do, but it doesn't have to be all of the things. I think that's
I think it can be more relationship oriented and less stuff oriented.
Aligned.
That's a great message.
Aggressively aligned.
And also, again, like as somebody who is smart and thoughtful about sustainability, not sustainability for the sake of sustainability too. I think that's
we get annoyed with that.
It's kind of the point, that it's the world of like the media part of what we live in. I don't think a lot of people are having conversations that's like, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, or I don't know. I just think that it's a good opportunity to say, like, it's fine.
You
have any other questions?
I have a question about the Tesla battery that's unrelated.
I
have one Tesla battery question, and then I have one more question about all of the labels that are on things. Tesla batteries. Are you worried about the battery? Where's it going to go? What are we going to do with it? Like drilling versus batteries. Like, I know you're in building construction, but you've got to have an opinion.
Yeah. So I think we need to do more work on recycling in general. So I think that needs to be explored more as far as the battery. Am I currently worried about it? From our perspective, I'm not worried about like the replacement cost of it. Like if our battery goes, we are leasing. We did that for a reason, right? Because this was a first time foray into electric vehicles. So we weren't sure what the experience was going to be like. And we put in a charging station in our home, and it's been great. We actually really love the car. We love the way it drives. The batteries have been really good all throughout, and we're getting towards the end of like 3 years. So far it's so good. Really good retention, I would say, on the battery. Now, we live in a warmer climate, so I'm not sure if that would translate in a colder climate. Um, I I think that I don't know enough to know if they can be refurbished to the point where they could be reused in a second lease or something like that. I'm guessing it would probably last based on what I'm seeing right now with the current car. I think I'd probably feel comfortable that it would last a good 10 years. I
Okay.
mean, at this point, unless at some point it does a nosedive in its battery life. But yeah, I also, yeah, I feel really comfortable with the car now that we've had it for as long as we have. At one point I thought, oh, I'm not sure if we're gonna like it and
Yeah.
work for us with, even just driving habits and things like that. But it's been great. Yeah, and I'm really not that worried about it yet. I mean, if the lithium, because if there really is a shortage of raw materials, um, then I would be probably way more concerned about, buying into that and creating a bigger problem. I'm not saying that I think that all materials are coming from the right places or in the right conditions, but so far as quality goes, we're happy.
That we talked about. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Seems to be pretty good.
So in building and construction, we had to be really specific if we were going to say we're LEED or USGBC or whatever claims we were making, particularly on packaging. That we had to be absolutely meticulous on the claims we were making. When we're buying things in the store, it says green or this, or do you know anything about the regulation outside of building and construction? Is this as stringent as building and construction? Can you just put a leaf on it and it's green? Because even my mom is trying to make decisions and she's like, everything looks green. Like
I bought like this Aveeno safe baby blah 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 with a leaf on it. I turned it over, first or second ingredient was petroleum, and I'm like, oh, I thought it was natural. I mean, I guess
it's probably natural, but yeah. Well, that's the thing, natural, organic. If you go and look at the definitions of, some of those terms legally, the legal definitions, they're pretty wide open and they don't mean what people think they mean very often. So I don't know a lot about like the fabric industry and if they have like a LEED, equivalent. I would just say like LEED too, we've had, it's a certification for a building and the products couldn't get LEED certified, right? That was one of the, stipulations there is you can contribute towards LEED certification, but you don't meet LEED certification requirements. You couldn't really say that, but we did have, and you can in that industry, I'm pretty certain as well, go through analysis and show that you have 20% recycled content and those kinds of things. And those things can be validated through like UL environment is one where you can, trust pretty well that, if you see a UL environment meets whatever the claim has been verified by a third party. I guess really trusted third parties would be something that I would look for. And then just don't be fooled by just a marketing term like natural or,
or
natural, or organic, or whatever.
Petroleum's the first ingredient.
I really thought that was like petroleum, but it makes my skin really great. So I don't really give a shit.
Dear Lord.
Funny. Fun. Anything else you want to talk about or you want to share we haven't covered that we should have?
Man, well, I think you've been doing a really good job with the looking at the brands. I thought that's kind of a really fun thing. I hadn't seen anybody do that at this point and looking into it. Wow, there's some real skeletons in the closet in some cases. So that's been kind of fun to learn about. Yeah, you never know, right?
Anybody you want us to pick on?
Yeah, anybody
you want us to pick on? Take a look at?
Yeah.
You can come back. You can email Jess or come back.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to think about that one. Yeah. I mean, there's probably a few I could go.
Okay.
I wonder.
Give us some ideas. We've got we've got a backlog we need to.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different things popping up now. I think the one thing for me too is like, even with the energy, like energy security and just national security is kind of it's just at the forefront of the news all the time.
Yeah.
And so that whole made in America or the US kind of situation, verifying that kind of stuff and what really qualifies as made in the US. Sometimes you can still get materials from other countries as long as you put them together here. It's made in America.
True.
And so it's interesting. That's kind
also
of
like US owned, US made claims, right? And like, what does that mean? And maybe like I was reading an article about the Chinese are coming over and building buildings here and then putting made in the US. It's like,
right.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happened after the tariffs. But anyways,
Just gonna table the tariffs.
Don't bother our.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that tariff conversation with you on a Friday.
Well, that tariff conversation was interesting as well because I have fingers in the golf cart industry as well here with my husband, and they have had some issues as well with a similar situation with Chinese competition coming in and not paying tariffs coming in and trying to skate around things. And there's been some articles written about that as well. Because they've been, just like the solar industry come in and underpriced, based on, some of the things they are capable of doing and skating around. And unfortunately really hurts the US manufacturing sector. So
even if in some cases that is the intent for the tariffs is so more things are made in the United States. The effect is not necessarily that it will be a benefit to the US population.
Our
economy, our people,
right?
Yeah, all the things.
Right.
Really, really tricky.
Right.
Thank you so much, Amy.
Anybody to reach you at or hire you or check out your consulting company?
Yeah, my website, probably through my website, which is mynestsolutions.com.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Smarty Pants will tag it. She does it every time.
I'll make it happen.
Yeah. I love talking. I can talk all day about building codes. So.
Oh my God. Same. I get so nerded out. And then I think about like, we're looking at the back of the Great Stuff label, like with folks like you. I'm like, okay, can we say that? Can we not say that? Can we substantiate? Like just all of that is, it's nerdy, but it's really fun. And to know we worked in a business that put so much thought behind their claims. And so much integrity behind the things that we said.
And what we knew we couldn't claim, but we knew became important. How do we go figure out how to do that? I mean, that was what was fun is it didn't just stop at like, this is what we have to offer and here's how we can talk about it. Continue to create something really good.
And I'll say this too. I always felt like we were on the right side of the discussion. We always wore the white hat and we were always really very consumer focused and how things were going to affect the consumer, as well as just like relying on science and technology in order to make very accurate claims and move the industry in a really good solid direction. So I thought that's one thing that I always loved, and I feel like that we're part of something that and are a part of something that moves the industry forward in a really good way that I feel really good about at the end of the day. And so that's important to me.
Yeah, it was very much aligned to our personal, like our values. It's easy to do work when it aligns to your values. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
Amy, thank you for your time today. This is fun.
So fun.
Yeah. Love your new. I love
our first
setup.
guest. Yeah, you'll have to see our new set. We're going after it. Like I'm so excited to like Jess has seen bits and pieces of it, but I want to like surprise her, but also I don't want her to worry about it at all.
That's so cool.
But it'll be really good.
That's fun.
Very
fun.
Sneak peeks.
And we'll send a bag in the mail.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Great. Thanks. Thank
you.
you.
Have a good weekend.
Good luck. Okay, bye.
Thank you. See ya. Thank you for listening to Stirred Up. If you like what you heard, please subscribe. Check us out on YouTube. Follow us on your podcast apps. Please send it to a friend. Leave a comment. Add a rating. Every little bit helps. We look forward to seeing you next week.